The Follow Podcasting Network, found exclusively at wrestlingwithjohners.com. Hello, good evening, and thank you for joining us on another live episode of Wrestling with Johners, episode 307. Got an awesome guest for a Monday evening, and today I'm joined by none other than one of the very best performers, one of the very best talents on the UK scene, in my opinion, and in many other people's opinion. True Grit, Connor Mills. Connor, great to have you on the show. How you doing, my friend?
Yeah, good, thank you. Really happy to be on. Something I wanted to do for a while. I don't do enough of these podcasts and share a bit about myself and my career, so I'm quite happy to and looking forward to doing that today.
Yeah, no, you're very, very welcome. We've had a lot of interest in you as a guest and a lot of anticipation for this episode. And we are going to be looking back at your kind of early career, your early start in the business, working with Maverick Mayhew, all the way through the progress years and destination everywhere. Obviously, we're going to talk about Michael Oku and focus on more recent events as well. But for anybody watching live at home, if you want to get in touch, if you want to send your questions through for Connor Mills, you can do. Just send them through to us using your chosen device, and we'll do our very best to bring every single question up during the course of this live interview. But just a quick reminder to my listeners and viewers out there, if you haven't already subscribed, please do so to my YouTube channels. I've had some wonderful guests over the last month or so. This, of course, being the first interview of July, but during the month of June, I had my exclusive interview with Nigel McGuinness after day 3 of Super Strong Style in the Electric Ballroom, AEW commentator, of course, famed commentator with WWE and former Impact, TNA and Ring of Honor wrestling legend. Of course, in the month of June, I've had the English Lion, Eddie Ryan, on the show. Just 24 hours later, spoke to British wrestling legend James Mason. The following week, Rain Leverkusen was a guest on Wrestling with Johners. And last week, I had Mike Quackenbush and Vusic, a very talented young performer up in the northeast of the UK, came on the show last week. And of course, my lineup for this month looks pretty strong. Connor Mills there. I've got Joel Redmond coming on for his second appearance on the Wrestling with Johners podcast. Sam Bailey, Sid Oakley, Septic Sid Oakley, Nathan Angel, and so many more. I've got Taj there, the promoter from Tidal, and World of Sport ring announcer as well. But Connor, it's been a terrific, let's say, year and a half since everybody came out of lockdown. But focusing on 2023, I think this is probably going to be one of your busiest and craziest years so far. I mean, looking at the matches that you've worked, the companies you've worked for, if you were to sum up 2023 so far, we've just surpassed the first 6 months. How would you sum up the first 6 months of this year, my friend?
It's going as good as I'd hoped, to be honest with you. I didn't really know if I'd be back at Progress for no particular reason, but I just didn't know if that was going to be a thing. So that's happened. Really happy with my path at RevPro at the moment. Very happy Attack Pro Wrestling's back. So it does feel like a lot of what didn't happen in 2020 is now happening. So it feels like it's almost coming full circle.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to take a deep dive into all of that. Attack Pro Wrestling, your kind of jaunts over to South Wales with New Wave and all of that during the course of this. Lots of fun topics to cover. And once again, if you're watching us live, please get in touch. Please send us your questions. But first of all, we have to talk about probably one of the biggest talking points in 2023 for yourself, and that is Progress. And day 1 of Super Strong Style at the end of May, bank holiday weekend in May at the Dome, a venue you're very familiar with. You came out and kind of shocked the British wrestling scene by attacking Spike Trivet. I've got a couple of pictures here, Connor, of that fateful evening. you left him laying as well. But that kind of text or email or phone call that came through saying, Connor, we're interested in bringing you back into Progress. And by the way, you're going to be involved in a 3-day long storyline. And by the way, it's going to be with Spike. What was your reaction when you got that message?
It was a bit surreal, to be honest with you. Especially working with Spike, because about 6-7 years ago now, I wrestled him in my first ever match at like Progress at the Ballroom. We wrestled each other twice. We wrestled once at the Dome, which is funny, and then we wrestled once at the Ballroom in the one of the first ever pre-show matches. So again, it was almost like a bit of a full circle moment, especially to like do that with him. And it was real nice to like see like him like we started there together, and then the next time I came back, he's now like the top guy there, like the champion and that, and he's obviously like very capable and he's the champion for a reason. So I was like real happy, real surprised, like in a pleasant way to have been reached out to do that, and really enjoyed it. And hope it's not the last time I do anything with them for sure.
Absolutely. We will be talking a bit more about day 2 and day 3 in a minute. But it was your first time back in a Progress ring since, I think, unboxing 2019. So you're talking about
Yeah,
3.5 years there, Connor. So obviously you've been a mainstay in RevPro and one or two other promotions, and Progress, like I say, 3.5 years later, you're back inside the Dome, you're back inside the Ballroom. That was a bit of a special moment for you, maybe a bit of a thrill for you. And maybe something that you thought probably wasn't likely to happen this year, but it did finally. What were your emotions?
uh, it was nice. I'll be honest with you. I feel like I came back there as like a completely different wrestler. Like when I was there before, I really felt like out of my element. I didn't really have a lot of confidence in myself. I didn't really felt like I belonged. But this time, I can definitely say like I know I belong there, and I was like very happy to be there, like be in that ballroom and feel that atmosphere again. So yeah, it was good to like go there as like a new, like better version of myself.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And as we mentioned, you made your shock appearance at the Dome on day 1 on the Saturday evening. On the Sunday evening, you appeared again. I think there was a tussle between yourself, Spike, and I think Bullet possibly got involved. He's always there,
Yeah,
somewhere behind Spike. And then day 3, you had the match. Now, obviously, it was a non-title match. I don't suppose you'd expect to be thrown straight into a title match as soon as you return back into Progress, but getting that match and being in front of the Ballroom fans again and having that match on day 3, and it was an epic 3-day event. You were there, I saw you over the weekend, but just being part of that atmosphere again and having that match with Spike, that must be, I can only imagine that you were grinning from ear to ear both before, during and after the match.
yeah, definitely. Like it's very nice and like reassuring in yourself as a wrestler to be like you're gonna wrestle our top guy, like you're gonna wrestle
Yeah.
the champion. So it's like it's nice that they hold me to that same standard.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were going to talk a lot more about your kind of earlier years with Maverick and Eminem, but to hear a few pictures, certainly from day 3, and there he is. Everybody boo. Yeah, the Sovereign Lord, and it was a hell of a match. And like you say, it was a different Connor Mills to what we saw all them years ago. Your last ever match for Progress was 3.5 years ago, but I mean, you pretty much, even within your first year, started having matches for Progress. And we will take a deep dive into that. But let's talk about more recent. Oh, I've got another question about Progress. And I think you alluded to it there, and I don't know if there are any plans. You certainly don't need to leak anything here on this show, but I mean, certainly, is there a desire to perform more for Progress and to kind of see where that takes you, especially having that program with Spike over Strong Style? You must have the bug again to continue doing that in front of the Progress fans.
Yeah, absolutely. Because for me, just to be everywhere again and like wrestle everywhere is like my main goal, and to be on the big stages, including Progress, and like wrestle again in London, which is like my home, is like something I hold quite close to me. But whenever there's shows in London and I'm not on them, I get quite bad FOMO. So I like to be on like the London shows and to be on like the top shows and to be consistently everywhere is like my main goal now. So being able to do that and yeah, working with Progress more would be something I'd definitely love to do.
Absolutely, and I think you've been kind of on the cusp of being one of the best indie performers on the UK for many years. And I think that 2023, with everything I'm seeing, especially with how 2022 went, I think 2023 is definitely going to be your year in one way or another. And we'll take a deep dive into why I believe that very soon. But this weekend, you were back inside a Rev Pro ring, weren't you? And there you
Yeah.
are, teaming up with Wild Boar, Mike Hitchman, of course, going up against Robbie X, the current RevPro cruiserweight champion, and Luke Jacobs, four of the very best talents in the ring there. I think that was that yesterday that
Yeah,
happened, that
yesterday.
match. How was
Yeah.
that? How did that match go? How was that experience?
Yeah, really good. You know, as you said, like two, like you know, I feel like we're four of like the best, and like we all hold each other to a high standard when we wrestle, and we do all bring the best out of each other. So it was like a solid match. Didn't feel like there were any weak links in it. Felt like four consistent guys coming together to do like and put together a really good match.
Yeah, absolutely. But kind of when I saw that match graphic, I knew the match was going ahead. I thought, Connor Mills and Wild Boar, that's a bit of an odd pairing if ever I've seen it, to be honest with you. I know that you two have probably got connections dating back to your attack days, or I can only assume. And I know
Yeah,
that he's one of the trainers at New Wave as well, where you've spent a lot of your time this year in South Wales. Let's say not the obvious pairing, certainly not in my wrestling mind anyway. But how did that come about, and how was it to team with Mike?
so him and Robbie having a little bit of a feud, and me and Robbie also having a bit of a feud at the moment.
Gotcha, gotcha.
So I guess like it was kind of either one of us sort of going for him now for that cruiserweight belt. So yeah, thrown in there with Luke Jacobs as well, who's the former cruiserweight champion. So yeah, it just fell together nicely like that.
It all makes perfect sense now. It all makes perfect sense. And you've been a mainstay with RevPro since I think early 2020. So for the last coming up 4 years now, and it's kind of been your main promotion, your home away from home, you could say.
Yeah,
I mean, looking at this year, and I think you've probably had 15 or 16 matches already in the RevPro ring, matches against JJ Gale, Lance Archer, Robbie X for the cruiserweight title, Yota Tsuji, TK Cooper, Luke Jacobs, David Francisco, who you just can't seem to shake off. I think you've had a
yeah,
rivalry with him ever since you started, and many others. But once again, Rev Pro delivering some incredible matches and opponents for you in 2023 already.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Like it's been a good list and a good mix, and it's nice to get to mix it up with again with people like Lance Archer, who I don't think I would get the opportunity to anywhere else at the time, for the time being. So it's real nice to like be able to do stuff like that and be pushed out of my element and learn to wrestle people like that as well.
Yeah. He's a big dude, isn't he? I mean, I've seen clips of you in that match with Lance, and I'm going to take a guess here. You must be at least 6'5". But I know you
Yeah,
did your kind of is it like a slingshot lariat, and you took the big man down.
yeah.
Maybe a swinging lariat off the middle rope there. But what was it like to be in there? What was he like to be around backstage as well? What was he like to kind of be around for the course of that day, Connor?
He was lovely. He honestly was like super pleasant and like real nice. Like we were just bouncing off each other, and I feel like there's a bit of a thing where when you wrestle someone more experienced than you, like who's been on TV and stuff, like you're more inclined to listen to them, and rightfully so because they've been doing it more and they know the job more. But you do sometimes get a bit hesitant, like you don't want to pitch ideas or you just want to listen. But it's real nice when they want to like ask you like for your input as well and make it like a joint effort rather than just like their match where you're included, like it's a 50-50 match. So that was nice.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And like I say, unfortunately, you came out on the losing end during that match, but I'm sure you proved that you were kind of worthy to be in there with him. And another
Yeah.
competitor that you obviously proved that you were more than worthy to be in the ring with. And we got to talk about Pac. And I think it's nearly a year to the day when you faced him for the AEW All Atlantic Championship. And of course, earlier that day, you won a scramble match to earn that right to face Pac. But I mean, a lot of people I've spoken to and a lot of the write-ups and reports about that match saying that that's easily inside their, top 5, top 10 matches of the entire 2022. And that match was incredible. It was brutal. I think you even took a top rope brainbuster just before he hit the black arrow, which looked brutal, my friends. But I mean, that day and that match, that experience, tell us about it.
So like I only really found out a day or two before what was going to
Really?
happen and stuff. So it's real like I knew the scramble and one person from the scramble would advance to face him for the belt. A couple days before, like I found out it'd be me, and I was like, oh shit, like wow, this is like a big deal now. Like, you know, just like the dream match, like level stuff, like from watching him and like Noah to watching him PWG to watching him like in NXT and then on WWE TV when I was like 15 to
Yeah.
like actually wrestling him. And I just remember being in the ring when he was making his entrance and I was just like so overwhelmed. Like it didn't feel real. Like watching him do his thing, I'm like, I'm about to like wrestle him. And again, he was super nice. Like he was really up for like listening to my ideas and like really liked some of the spots I had and all of that. So it's like I feel like it's such a nice reassurance and really like makes you feel good about yourself as a wrestler when like what you're saying is being received really well from someone like that level of a wrestler. So it was like a really good day, really good day. And then like everything that followed after, like seeing it on Instagram and Twitter and stuff, and hearing like saying like seeing like Taz's tweets, like having people send me like Taz's tweets saying like how good of a match it was. It's really nice to sort of get that feedback and that sort of, you know, like really does boost your confidence as a wrestler.
Absolutely. And the match was featured on AEW Dark, I believe, as well.
Yeah, yeah, it's
That's pretty
crazy.
cool.
Yeah,
That's really cool. I'm just going to bring up the match graphic there because it's a pretty sweet graphic. But I mean, talk about the match because Pac is very intense, isn't he? He's very intense, very fast paced. He hits hard. Not that I would know, but from having seen a lot of his matches, he hits hard.
yeah.
And that brainbuster, that top rope brainbuster, wow. But tell us about the match and kind of obviously, you know, you must have enjoyed the hell out of it. Thrilled to be in there with somebody like Pac who's been there, done that, bought the t-shirt. But what were some of your main takeaways from being in the ring with somebody like that? And tell us a bit about the match itself.
So the match itself, like I was like you said, he's obviously like a high flyer. He's got a real fast pace. But it's one of the slowest matches I've had that year, like ever,
Really?
like in a good way. Like really, sort of my main takeaway, as you say, would probably be like the way I pace myself now as a wrestler, especially as like a heel, or like when I'm playing bad guy and whatnot. The way like I like conduct myself and carry myself around the ring, it really sort of taught me to be slow and take my time with everything. And then on the flip side, when I was in there and like I'm the babyface taking the beat down, it really taught me like to like really like sell more. Like it sounds like such a simple, basic thing that you know you hear a lot, but it really does like those experiences and like just listening to him like and following his lead, like it really like ups my game as a wrestler. And there's a lot of like a lot of cool spots as well as it like you know, for like having some sort of a story. So it was just like a spot fest, but like had like some nice moments in and stuff. Like we had a couple spots where I would do like he went for the 450 and missed, and then I hit the 450, and then like I went for a moonsault dive and missed, and then he hit something else. So it was like tit for tat and stuff like that. So it was real nice and like really, really good being in the ring with him, and I took like a lot away, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I highly recommend anybody watching or listening to this to go and check out that match. Check out RevPro on demand and source that match. Watch that match back because it was awesome. And well, in fact, it's going to be on AEW Dark or AEW's YouTube channel. So go and find it. But I think probably the biggest highlight of yours from last year, and probably when people think of Connor Mills 2022, they automatically associate you and the feud you had with Michael Oku. And I think the story that you two told, the journey that you two went on, the match you had at the end of the year, and kind of what got us there. And so I'm going to bring up some pictures here. And obviously, you were destination everywhere, famed tag team, former tag team champions in Rev Pro, fought the biggest and the best teams that Rev Pro could throw at you. And then, of course, you fought Michael Oku for his undisputed British Cruiserweight Championship, of course. And then obviously you kind of snapped, you turned heel on him, but I think you remained friends to a certain degree. And then, of course, Michael Oku addresses Connor Mills. That was an epic confrontation where Amira got kicked in the head, and that obviously
Yeah,
set up the match for. It was December the 17th at York Hall. So December just gone, Uprising. And what a story you two told. And it was a terrific match at the York Hall as well to close out the year. But obviously these things take time, and as we know, you watch the Bloodline storyline that's been going on nearly 3 years, possibly longer, and all the best stories are kind of told with a bit of time and a bit of patience, and that's what you two told, along with the inclusion of Amira and obviously the RevPro management and various other elements. But take us back to that whole story. It must be a story that you're incredibly proud of, and will kind of be one of your kind of lasting memories, I suppose, certainly from last year anyway.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It was one of those things for me where like, it was a body of work that I was really proud of because as well as actually doing it and like executing it and everything coming off the way we wanted and then even better, it really again like brought the character side out of me more, which is something that I've always lacked. So like doing that really, really pushed me out of like my comfort zone and like it brought the best out of me. And I think that's like part why it came across so well, mixed with the fact that we're real life best friends,
Yeah.
mixed with the fact that like we've come together and put in all of these ideas and like little moments and not rushed at all. Like it's been like a 3 year, well, it was like a 3 year feud,
Wow.
and yeah, it just came to like such a nice head. Like, and we had both of those matches. They weren't complex or like hard to plan. They just fell together and everything just like made sense. And it was just I felt like the time was right throughout that whole storyline. So yeah, for sure, it'd be something I'll like always look back on and probably be one of my proudest memories in wrestling for sure.
Yeah, and you really pulled the emotion out of the fans and out of one another. And like I say, the action was amazing, but just the story, and yeah, it'll be something that I'll remember, and I know Rev Pro fans will remember for a long time. And I think that's also helped to kind of elevate you to a certain degree and take you to the next level. And as you just said, it's helped to bring out the more character side of you as well, which so well done. I mean, one thing I want to ask is, do you think there's more to this story to be had? Obviously, you've had two matches. You've had the classic match at York Hall, December the 17th. Do you think there's more to be had between yourself and Michael Oku to maybe? I think there's maybe at least one more match left between the two of you.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think we're done by like a long shot. But like for now, we've just gone our separate ways. But like, there's lots of places we could go with it that I definitely think will be a possibility in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And uh, you've had some incredible matches, some incredible moments over the last couple of years in Rev Pro. Um, do you ever see yourself getting to the position of being the man in Rev Pro? And obviously, you've had championships, you've had tag team titles, you've had these great storylines, these great moments, and these great matches. But do you think that you're kind of getting to the stage now in your career, and in particular with Rev Pro, where you are kind of pushing yourself into the area of being the man, or maybe pushed into the main title picture, maybe this year, Connor?
I would like to think so for sure, because like I feel like my body of work has really like been very consistent, like especially the last 6 months since that York Hall match.
Yeah.
And as I say, like, I feel like I really found myself like as a character and not just as a wrestler. So I feel like for me, it's been kind of something I've always known in wrestling, and I've always had to accept that everyone's paths are different, and like mine seems to be a bit of like a slow ascent. So I'm not like in a hurry for it to happen, and I'm sort of trusting the process a little bit, and I'm taking my time with it. But I do think it will happen. I think it will, and it can happen for sure, for sure.
Yeah. And even more interesting, now I'm going to throw this little kind of spanner or wrench in the works here, but I think it's this coming Sunday, July the 9th. You got Michael Oku versus the Great Okan for the Rev Pro Undisputed British Heavyweight title. How do you feel about that? Because potentially, and I'm just kind of playing armchair quarterback here, if he were to win, that could be quite tasty for you to kind of think, well, maybe there is a third match in it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there was never any stipulation or anything saying we can't wrestle again, and especially if there's like a championship involved and
Yeah,
I get myself into a number one contender position, then there's lots to play around because now you have the element of like a blood feud and a grudge match mixed with the element of a title on the line, which is kind of a combination of the first two matches, which is, I guess, the only way we make it bigger. So we take match one, which was like an exhibition friend versus friend match for the cruiserweight title, and it was
Yeah,
about that title. And then the second match, it was like two like friends who like hate each other, and it was like a grudge match. So now you take both of those elements together, and you have a title match, a grudge title match, and I think that can make for like some really, really good in-ring stuff and like real good promo stuff and everything else. So like
absolutely.
something I'd be very keen to happen in the future.
Yeah. I've got to ask you now. You were ringside. You were present. Now, I think if I get my dates right, I think this was possibly October 2021 when Michael Oku had that amazing match against Will Ospreay, and you were kind of ringside there as his best
Yeah.
friend. What was it like to be ringside for the match? I know you got involved in the action as well as Amira as well, but that match I think would go down as one of the best matches in RevPro history. And you were there; you couldn't have been any closer. I suppose from a performer standpoint, or maybe even from a fan's perspective, what was that? What was that like? What was it like to be there?
It's just like honestly the only way I could sum it up is it was like captivating to just I was cornering Mike, I should have maybe been more of a cheerleader in hindsight than him and like but I was so like invested and captivated in the match. I just was glued to it. I just couldn't stop watching. And there were
Yeah,
moments in it where I was just wincing, there were moments in it I was cringing, there were moments I was just hoping that they're both still alive. But
yeah.
it's like truly like a sight to behold. And it's definitely one of the best matches I've ever seen, just period.
Yeah, and of course you were part of that match, but like I say, I think I've seen that match 3 or 4 times. It's just one of those matches that will never get old. But I'm sure we'll talk more about Rev Pro during the course of this interview. But I want to talk about Attack Pro Wrestling now because you made your debut for Attack. I think it was in 2018 now,
Against Wild
and
Boar, first ever
against Wild
match.
Boar. What a full
Yeah,
circle moment, absolutely. But you made your debut for them 2018, and then you kind of wrestled for them throughout 2019. I think 2019 was your busiest year up till now. I would say you
yeah.
performed more times for Attack that year than any other company. But I've got to ask you, how does it feel now that Attack Pro Wrestling is back on the scene and back, you're now performing again for Attack, which must be pretty cool for you. But a pretty cool moment when they returned, and now I think you've performed for them 3 or 4 times already.
Yeah, like it was real cool to like have them back and be a part of it. When the first show happened, and I didn't feel like I don't want to say I felt like hurt or but I was a bit sad that I wasn't like asked to be a part of it because I do feel like they have a lot of like loyalty and I hold them quite close to my heart because they were one of the first promotions to I want to say like see something in me and like
Yeah,
give me an opportunity and like put me in like a prominent spot and like allow me to find myself and like wrestle like a bunch of different people and like really bring the best out of me and like see something in me and trust that. So when it was back, I was like really, really happy. This is like good group of people there. Like even though this is like running at different venues, it's still the same Attack. Like at the heart of it, it's still got that same atmosphere backstage, and like all of the guys and girls there are like great, and like it's just a good team, and it's always been one of my favorite places to work. Like then, and it still is now. I've
yeah,
had nothing but
absolutely.
like the best. And then earlier this month, I got to do something with Nigel McGuinness in the ring, which is like crazy to me. I never thought I'd be able to do something like that. So like get to again like for them to give me something like that and let me work with my hero essentially like is something I always keep close to my heart.
Yeah, it's a bucket list moment for sure, and I'm going to bring up that photo again because I've not seen the clip. I don't know what he's saying to you. I can only assume that he's putting you over, and rightly so. But tell us about that whole experience and working with Nigel, somebody that I interviewed last month or a couple of months ago. But tell us what that was all about and about the experience as well.
So I had a bit of a feud there at Attack. I was having matches on the WrestleMania weekend, the shows that they did, where I'd keep attacking the Ring Crew Express. So the Ring Crew Express are like just the Ring Crew guys, and their gimmick is that they're just fixing the ring, and when they get called to action, they just go for it. They don't even have proper ring gear. And then after the shows, I kept attacking them. One of them, tries to stand up to me, and we have a match, and I beat him. And then the main one who I kept attacking, uh, they told me like, "Oh, we've got Nigel. He's going to do the raffle at the show. Like, we've asked him if he could ref your match." And I was like, "What?" So they did like a whole gimmick where the ring crew guy was there, and he said he had a raffle ticket himself. And then Nigel says to him, "Oh, like, well, if you win this raffle, you get to choose your prize is that you get to choose the referee for your match." And then chooses Nigel, and everyone goes crazy, and it's great. And like he's got the purple attack ref shirt on already, so it was real cool. And yeah, I got to have like a little bit of dialogue with him, so that was really really nice as well. Like just to be in the ring and see them photos, it's like really really
Yeah.
surreal.
Yeah, top guy, top guy. I'm going to bring up some graphics here, and obviously over WrestleMania weekend, you fought Haskins, you fought Danny Jones, more recently Kurt Atlas as well, a really talented young up and coming individual from South Wales, and then of course at Rafflemania, not Rafflemania, Rafflemania for Connor Mills versus Shane Hooker. Now I've had Shane on the show, hell of a talent, hell of an athlete, still really really young. He's only just surpassed 1 year in the business, or 1 year since his first match. But let's focus on some of the younger guys. Kurt Atlas, wasn't it, and Shane Hooker. Some tremendous young talents there that you faced in an Attack Pro Wrestling ring. And of course, just a few years ago, you know, you were in the same kind of situation they were, cutting your teeth, learning the business, working your way up. So I suppose they kind of looked up to you in a sense. But tell us a bit about those two individuals anyway.
It's like a real testament. I think those two like are a real testament to their training school because, like you said, they're only like a year or a couple of years in themselves,
Yeah,
and they're like very, very good for how long they've been wrestling, in my opinion. Like, you know, they're not, you don't feel like I'm wrestling someone who has been wrestling for a year. Feels like I've been wrestling people who've been like trained like exceptionally well and really consistently. So I think they're really good walking advertisements for new wave and like the Welsh training scene, and they're like really good testaments and advertisements to Brendan White and his school and everything
yeah,
he's doing there. They seem like the scene is really, really strong in Wales at the moment, and like everyone there is super cool, and like they work, like they really do work as a team. Like New Wave, Attack, and Chaos, you know, they all run in the same vicinity. They all work together, and the shows that I have been lucky enough to do for all of them promotions have been some of my favorite ones I've done, with like some of the best crowds and like just great locker room of people.
yeah, absolutely. And like I say, I love the South Wales guys. I've worked a fair bit with Brendan and No Mercy Wrestling in South Wales as well. And so I've had Shane on the show. Absolutely fantastic talent. But it does take us to our first listener question that came through before the show started. And let me just bring it up here. Friend of the show, Richie, sent a question in. Do you feel that we have the best version of Connor Mills now, especially since coming out of lockdown? And just to echo kind of Rich's words there, like I say, I think what I've seen from you over the last couple of years, like you say, you've worked on your character work. You're facing some of the top names, not just from the UK, but internationally. Coming back into progress, you seem to be more confident than ever. But do you think we've got the best version of Connor Mills now?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like so far, like I do believe that. And I think in 2019, I was like becoming like a really good version of myself. And then in 2020, on post lockdown and like the first year after, didn't feel the same. I felt a bit rocky and up and down. Didn't know what I was doing with wrestling. Didn't know what I was doing with myself. Like felt a bit lost as a wrestler and a character. And then like the last year and like the last 6 months especially, like I've really like just opened my eyes to what I want and like made me find myself more as like a wrestler. So yeah, like at the time, I do believe like I'm the best version of myself now as a wrestler, and I hope that it just continues to go down that road and only get better.
Yeah. What kind of following on from your last statement, what fundamentally do you think has changed to get you to where you are now? You said over the last 6 months or so, you know, you feel like you've improved as a character, as a performer. Did you have to kind of take a bit of a soul searching mission and really kind of take a deep dive into yourself to kind of really break down what was working, what wasn't working? But what do you think you've changed for the better to get you to where you are now?
Yeah, for sure. Like there was a mixture of like taking a look inward and trying to like figure out me as a wrestler, and then there was wrestling like you said, like I've been really fortunate enough to wrestle some really good names and talent over the last year, and I've learned so much from those people. I've kind of collected all of those like little pieces and like put together like a version of wrestling for myself that's working for me. And like a real big thing I had to constantly tell myself is like every single person's like idea of wrestling and version of wrestling is slightly different to the next. And you've got to find the one that makes most sense to you, and that you can execute well, that you find like is consistently working and getting you over in front of every different crowd. So I feel like doing that and like slowly listening and picking and choosing and really trying to understand the advice we're being given and using everything as a learning experience is really like opened my eyes and made me feel like a better wrestler for sure.
Yeah, and the other thing that's kind of caught my eye and a lot of people's eyes, and certainly over the last 12 months or so, and that's the appearance. And before we were always used to the long hair, the braided hair, and now we've got the short-haired Connor Mills. That was obviously a conscious decision, but tell us a bit about the thought process behind that, and why you decided to get rid of the lovely long locks and the braids to the short hair.
So when I started wrestling, I was like growing my hair out as a teenager. I just wanted to have like, like early 2000s ruthless aggression era wrestler like Triple H, long wet hair. And that was always my goal. Then obviously as I started getting into wrestling, it grew longer and longer. And I was wetting it all the time and stuff, and like I wasn't really like happy with it. And then one day my sister just braided it for like a show, and then there was a few people like, oh, it looks cool, like it looks different, and that's just thinking to myself,
Yeah.
oh, here's like a way like I can stand out or like use my appearance, like, make myself look a little more unique or different. So I kept it. I did shoehorn myself for a while because doing that every week was like a pain and took a
I'm
lot of
sure, yeah.
time. And then like plastering my logo on my gear and stuff with it was now like got to keep up that consistent appearance. And then I just thought to myself, it really became like, I feel like some of the most notable work and stuff that got seen was my work with Mike, like, and I mean more of the tagging side of things. So like my thought process was now the way I look is going to be associated with me teaming with Mike. So for the story and to like kind of give myself a fresh look, I just thought it made sense to cut it off, and I don't regret it at all. Everyone asks me like, "Do you regret it?" But like, it's so much more comfortable. I feel more like confident with it. Like it's easier to wrestle. Like it's a new, like fresh look. And I do feel like somewhere in there kind of went from a boy to a man now. So I am, yeah, I'm happy with it.
Yeah, and I'm not one to talk, but I mean, it certainly gives that more mature appearance
Yeah.
and that more kind of serious impression about you. And I think it works. It works definitely. Let's switch subjects a little bit then, Connor. I want to talk a bit about your wrestling fandom now, and I know we're going to talk about how young you started in the business, but at what age and kind of what was going on in your life when you first got into pro wrestling as a fan? Then.
So I kind of don't have like a pinpoint in time where like I was watching it. I just always knew that my siblings were, so I'm the youngest of five, and my four older siblings were always watching it. My sister and my three brothers, they were always watching wrestling and or like VHS tapes of like Hell in the Cell, Mick Foley and Undertaker like recorded, like WrestleMania 17 like recorded on VHS, like WrestleMania 15 on VHS, and I'd always just watch them on repeat. And then as we all slowly grew older and I became like a bit more into my childhood, I was still watching it. But as they grew into teenagers and I started to like become a teenager as well, they all, yeah, stopped liking it. But I was the one, me and my sister, were the ones who just never stopped liking it. And it got like, it became fixation and like everything I watched. And, like Friday nights after school, watching like, then it was watching old school, like Ring of Honor and stuff like that. And then staying up to miss school for like a pay-per-view on a Sunday and stuff like that. And then, yeah, just at one point, I kind of said to myself in school, like, what do I want to do? What's my dream? And I was like, okay, well, I want to be a wrestler. So I'm just going to give it everything I have and try and achieve that.
Yes, I mean, obviously you had the desire to be a pro wrestler from a young age. How did you start that journey? Because I think you made your debut at maybe, was it 17, 16, 17? So tell us about kind of the very early days, finding a training school and getting going as a trainee.
So I went actually the first ever time I went to a training school. I went with my oldest brother because he knew I was looking for somewhere to train, and we went down to a place in Croydon. Uh, had a look there. I just remember seeing a wrestling ring for the first time, and a bit like, dumbfounded by it, like a bit in awe, like of seeing a real life wrestling ring. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't the best wrestling ring, but it's still a wrestling ring
Yeah.
nonetheless. And yeah, the next week I just sat and watched for the first session because I was a bit shy. And then the next week I was like, okay, let's give it a go. And then like every Sunday throughout 2015, I was just training there. And it was like that sort of May 2015 was when I started my GCSEs in my last year of school. So I felt like, okay, well now's the time, to finish my GCSEs, and spent my whole summer just training there. And I definitely feel like I had matches a lot sooner than I should have. But in the long run, I feel like that's done me more good than it has harm. So I wouldn't change that, if that makes sense. Because I feel like when I can look back and know that they weren't the best, I was still like, like kind of felt like I learned as I was going, like,
Yeah.
and I got to do it a bit of a different route. So yeah, definitely don't regret the way I started for sure.
Yeah,
And it's been like a
absolutely.
very like crazy, like weird journey. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's been like 8 years in August. It'll be 8 years
Wow.
since I first went to a training school.
That is crazy. And I've got in my notes here now, please feel free to correct me, but did RJ Singh and Shah Samuels, did they play a part in your early career and your training from a youngster?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. When I started going to knuckle locks, Eddie Dennis is like my main coach,
Right.
and he really he was my coach. He kind of made me into like a good performer and wrestler, like all round wrestler. Like helped me with like heats and like promo stuff, and like structuring matches. Like he really took me to that level where I felt comfortable to like go and have matches on shows, and I didn't feel out of my element. So yeah, definitely. And then yeah, like in 2019, I started training more with Shah Samuels,
Ah,
and yeah, like obviously at the time he was going through his NXT UK, like going into that position in his career, and it's nice that he could kind of feed back stuff that he'd been taught, and like same now when he teaches at the RevPro London School, he can bring that sort of information back and share it with us. Same with Eddie as well, like going to the performance center and then coming back to the training schools and kind of drip that information down to us. So yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and I've got down here now. Feel free to correct me, but one of your first matches, possibly your first ever match, I'm not sure, was for the debut show of London Lucha League back in March 2016. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that was probably like God, some maybe like my 20th, 30th match, somewhere
Oh,
in that
really?
ballpark. So it's still, yeah, it's probably about 8 months into my since my first match. And yeah, that show was really cool. It was really cool to be a part of. Like, just very different to at the time to what it then turned into. Like, just a sort of regular show, but like it was a whole league table, and there was like four team captains, and like that each one was on a team and that. But it was such a yeah, it was such a fun show and fun experience. And I had been kind of based at the same place at the time and only wrestling there. That was one of the first sort of outside bookings that I got, and got to be around other wrestlers and to learn and get feedback and advice from different people who I wouldn't normally have got it from at that time.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I want to jump to progress again because I think certainly within your first year, you had made your progress debut. You mentioned about having that match against Spike, probably only your first or second match in a progress ring. But how did you get that opportunity? Because even in 2016, they were 4 years in, but already considered probably one of, if not the best UK independent promotions as they are today. But even back then, they were kind of like number one, number two, them and RevPro. But how did you get that start, especially being so new and so young to the business?
So through the training school at the time, like it was the Projos at this Progress's school,
Yeah,
and they were had usually had like a part of a show kind of reserved as like for their like trainees. It's like a spots for that.
gotcha.
So at the time, they started something called Freedom's Road, and it was like a sort of, I think, passion project for a few of the camera guys there, and they got to kind of direct it, and like they got to be in control of it, and it revolved around like the training school and kind of like some weird stories and stuff. And the shows were like at the Dome, and they were called Freedom's Road, and they would be like the essentially like the trainee shows, but they weren't trainee shows. They still had like good people on, you know.
Yeah.
They had like yeah, like I said, some regular like ballroom talent on there. So again, it's nice to mix it up and like it's kind of a show for us, but that featured like more experienced people to help us.
Yeah,
So
absolutely, to
yeah, it
help
was
elevate the younger talent. And I'm going to bring up some pictures here, and then I never like to embarrass my guests, but some of these are quite early pictures of
yeah.
Mr. Mills there, and let's say some of these. Which championship is that, Connor? Because you look as pleased as Punch to have that title over your shoulder there. Tell us about that.
So that was the first place I ever wrestled and trained at. It's called BECW,
Right.
and that was their championship. And that year they'd like bought like loads of new, like they upgraded all their championship belts, had like proper belts, and it was really cool. And like at that time, it was really, to me, I was like, my goal is to like win that belt when I first started training there. So at that time, like, you know, about a year and a bit later, a year and a half later, like like finally won it, and it was like real nice. Like it was like a little full circle moment at the time there.
Yeah, absolutely. Was that in this match here with
Yeah, yeah,
Alexander Roth by any chance?
yeah. That's
Awesome,
the one.
awesome. And then, of course, having the match against your mentor, RJ Singh, of course. There's a pretty awesome picture of you. Yeah, they're a an early promo picture, I'm sure. And then, of course, you with the
Yeah,
boys, Mav, Kurt, and Michael, of course. And then, of course, this must have been a bit of a dream match for you against Kip Sabian. Already back then, what we're talking 2017, 2018, one of the top UK performers, and getting a chance to perform with Kip. That must have been
yeah,
a pretty cool moment for you.
yeah. Definitely. It's like I remember when I saw that match getting announced, and I was like, "This is real cool." Like again, like getting to wrestle people who you hold in high regard, and you know, get their opinion and like listen to them. It's like real nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we spoke about one highly regarded tag team early, and that was yourself and Michael Oku, Destination Everywhere. And I think the other tag team that you're renowned for, that you're known for, is Eminem, Mills and Mayhew. And of course, you two wrestled up and down the country, were a renowned tag team. Both started at about a similar time, probably similar ages. You both look
Yeah,
very, very young there, I've got to say. Extraordinarily young. You even faced in a natural progression qualifier at the Dome. But you two, kind of the Hunter brothers there, GYV, and then over in Germany, the Anti-Fun Police, and then, of course, a triple threat match featuring yourself, Maverick Mayhew against Aussie Open and GYV again. But the two of you, I think 2018, 2019, you two had a ton of fun, didn't you? And I think you probably cut your teeth together, learnt the business together, grew up together, and had a lot of fun together as well.
yeah, definitely. It's some of my favorite memories of wrestling. Like some of the stuff we did, and I always hold that match I had against him at the Dome like in really high regards. And it was one of my favorite matches ever, still to the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the fantastic tag teams that you faced as well, and especially being so young and so new to the business, getting those opportunities against the Grizzled Young Veterans and Aussie Open and the Anti-Fun Police and so many more. That must have been a bit of an eye-opening experience, especially on the big stage of a Progress ring.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like getting to do what we did at that time at Progress, like looking back on it, like we were in a really good spot, and you know we were maybe like had no right to be there, being as new as we were, but like it was nice that we were trusted to be in that position and got to have some of the matches that we did.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to bring up one more graphic. And what about this? What do you remember about Hello Wembley? Because 4,000 people, probably more than that, in Wembley Arena, still the biggest show that Progress have ever ran. A wonderful show, truly very memorable show. And you were there as part of the tag team Thunder Bastard match. That must have been a pretty cool moment for you, kind of certainly a bucket list moment.
Yeah, for sure. Like I remember like that day very well. Sort of standing in the arena, looking at the ring, and being like, "We get to wrestle in here tonight." Like it was really cool.
Yeah,
It's really cool.
yeah,
Just
absolutely. And what?
yeah,
Go ahead,
very
carry on.
fond, very very fond memory for sure. Something I'll hold like very close to me for a long time.
Yeah. Did you feel at any stage during that time, especially when you were teaming so much with Mav and, wrestling those big teams, did you feel at all like you were maybe slightly out of your depth, or maybe, am I good enough to be here? Where was your mindset during, 2018, 2019, when you were teaming a lot with Mav and facing some of the best tag teams in the world?
Yeah, for sure. There were a lot of times where I think we both felt out of our depth and kind of a bit nervous and whatnot. But there were a lot of times where we got to deliver and like, okay, yeah, we can do this.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was like again, at the time I maybe would have been like, I wish we weren't doing this. I'm quite nervous. But in hindsight, I'm glad we did because when me and Mike eventually tagged, I'd have had so many like tag matches with such experience and like well-renowned tag teams that I was able to sort of carry that across to me and Mike as well. And like from the get-go, kind of have a good understanding of tag wrestling and whatnot.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And like you say, I mean, you were obviously put in those positions by the promoters and by the people, that make the matches. Obviously, they were confident in your abilities and put you in there for a reason. And as you said, you delivered. Otherwise, you wouldn't have had many matches, but you did have a whole ton of matches in progress. And like I say, making your return this year. But so going back through your career and your history, I think 2019, as a singles competitor now, was probably a bit of a breakout year for you. You'd done all the tag stuff, you'd kind of, grown up in the business, and 2019 comes along. With everything you'd learned in the years prior, I think 2019 was a real stellar year for you. And I think you said earlier that before lockdown, 2019 was the year when you really started getting going.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So it's almost kind of bittersweet now to
Mm,
feel like 10 times of the rest of that I felt then, but also like maybe not has like, kind of had to take a kind of reset almost. But then I guess that was a lot of people like post-COVID and with all these promotions shutting down and whatnot and like the world getting flipped upside down,
yeah.
like it's bittersweet, but again, like can't really change it. But now I do feel like even better of a wrestler than I was then, and I still had a lot of confidence in myself then. So like now
Yeah.
I'm hoping I can just carry that on, and like you said, this year's like really picking up for me. So
Oh,
yeah, things are
100%.
going well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always like to talk about light bulb moments on this show, and kind of I ask my guests, was there particular moments, in their early career or maybe more recently where things just kind of clicked and made sense, and you kind of think, oh, right, okay, I understand now. Now I know you've said over the last 6 months or so, you feel like you've really kind of clicked into the next gear, character wise, performance wise, appearance wise. But has there been any light bulb moments in particular over the years, could be from years ago or more recently, that you feel has been kind of pivotal in your development?
Um, I wouldn't say there were any particular moments. I've never really had any sort of like bang, like that's the moment for me. I feel like it's always been a bit of a gradual process for me.
Yeah,
And back to what I was saying earlier, like a lot of it was like getting feedback from like been working really experienced wrestlers or like getting feedback from like really experienced people on the shows and like really like listening to that feedback. So yeah, I can honestly say I don't feel like I've had any like particular light bulb moments or one particular time where something's just clicked. I feel like it's always kind of been gradual for me.
yeah, yeah. And we've got Alex watching us live via YouTube. Alex Perez. Any memories of wrestling in Spain, in Madrid, with Team White Wolf, wrestling in Barcelona, in the House of Lucha? This is a part of your career I'm not too familiar with. So enlighten us, and any particular fond memories of Spain, Madrid, and Team White Wolf,
Yeah, so that was actually my
or
first
White
ever
Wolf
time.
wrestling? Yeah,
Yeah, my first ever time abroad and my first ever booking abroad as well. So I went to White Wolf Wrestling in Barcelona, and it's one of the like coolest venues I've ever seen. It's like some weird sort of cathedral looking museum. I can't even describe it. but the ring was there. All of the fans were standing. There's about 600 people in there, all
Wow.
like real squished close to the ring, like banging the apron. It was like such a cool experience, and that really like feel like set the tone for me to like really want to go over and wrestle in Europe more. So that was something that I don't think we spoke about much, but the last year as well, really wrestled in Europe loads, and we've got to meet so many different people and perform in front of different crowds. So I think that's definitely kind of helped to my progression as a wrestler to work in front of like completely different crowds or wrestle people like who maybe don't speak English. So that in itself is a challenge when we're putting a match together and wrestle people have been trained different ways. So yeah, like
Yeah.
going there and then going all over Europe has been like one of my favorite parts of wrestling for sure.
Absolutely. And thank you, Alex, for sending in your question. Please keep them coming. And a poignant timing, because my next question is about you've not long returned from a little bit of a tour over in France, where I think you hosted a seminar. Now, you might need to help me with the pronunciation here, but is it Rixie Cash or Rix Cash over in
I
France, where you
believe it's Rixie Catch.
Rixie Catch, and so I
Yeah.
wasn't too far off. I wasn't too far off. But not only did you host a seminar, but you was involved in their title tournament. And first of all, tell us about the experience and doing the seminar. And like you say, potentially teaching trainees that might not have very good English. Tell us about the training, because I didn't know that you were much of a trainer or a coach until I came across that post.
So yeah, I've actually been coaching since 2019. I did a lot of
Wow.
coaching at the old Knucklelock school. Like obviously at that time I was still learning myself, but obviously teaching complete beginners. Yeah, it's like once you know the basics, you can teach the basics quite like fine.
Yeah.
But then yeah, obviously as I've got on wrestling and been wrestling over the last year, I feel like I've really become like a like a consistent good wrestler, like to a standard where you can be a coach. So
Yeah.
for the last year, like especially the last 8 months, I've been back at the new RevPro London School, like teaching there alongside Michael and David and Eddie, but who's sadly gone now, and
Yeah.
Shah Samuels now. So it's real nice to teach with those guys and like be a proper coach. And then because of that, I was able to go over to Europe to like Rick's and host a seminar there. And I've never done like a training camp. I've only ever done like 1 to 2 hour classes.
Yeah.
So to do 6 hours a day for 2 days, that was like really challenging to like know what to teach or know what to like how to give them the best value for their money per se. So that's been like a real good experience, and I've really enjoyed coaching, and it's always something I've enjoyed.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. This excursion was over in, and I'm probably going to butcher this, but Ploana in France, and you were also part of their title tournament. You got through to the final, I understand, but I want to focus on the first round match and against former guest of the show, Tristian Archer, and you guys went 25 minutes and you just had an absolute banger. I mean, Tristian's a beast anyway; he's a complete animal. But you two just battered the living hell out of one another. I think the fans absolutely loved it from the footage I've seen. But tell us a bit about facing and working Tristian in that first round match and going 25 minutes. And it looked like a pretty hot venue as well.
Yeah, it was a really cool venue. So it was in January, so it's freezing outside.
Oh, right.
But like inside it was real like toasty. And I yeah, like I'd met Tristian I think once before in October, or maybe twice before, and he was such a lovely guy. He was one of the nicest people I've ever met. Like not just in wrestling, but in real life as well. So when we wrestled, it was just real nice, like we're just on the same page and it fell together. And like you said, he's a beast. Like
Oh,
he's like a super sweet guy, but he's a beast. So yeah, wrestled there, and it was just really fun, and it was nice like to kind of get to wrestle him, and that be my introduction to like a French audience. And then it was only up from there. Like I wrestled David Francisco a couple months later, and we had like a really good match there in the second round. And again, like the crowd was like incredibly hot, like 1,000 plus people were there, I think. And then they're like nice, like the pinnacle of it all. Um, Agel Blanc, he's the French luchador wrestler.
right.
I wrestled him in October at Bodyzoy, and had one of my like favorite matches last year with him. Like, we both just like like every so often you'll wrestle people, you'll come across people like really feel and view wrestling through a really similar lens as you, I find, and like the same type of wrestling, same moves and stuff as you do. So when you wrestle them, it will really fall together like perfectly, and you'll kind of be like getting real happy, like hearing each other's ideas and get real excited about it. So when we wrestled in October, we had that sort of thing. We are just like, yeah, that's great. Like, yeah, that sounds great. And then to do the final again, like the rematch, like in front of like 900 people, in March, I think it was. Like they're just like hot and they were up for everything. Like we wrestled for like nearly 30 minutes. It was like one of my favorite matches this year for sure. I'm
Yeah.
gonna put the MV out soon. I'm gonna definitely put an MV out of that one because I'm real proud of that. So it's like a real
Yeah.
nice like excursion, and I'd definitely like to go back to Rixie. It's been nothing but pleasant experiences with them, and they're just a great team.
Yeah, and if you want to know what I'm on about, go and check it out on YouTube. I think if you just search Connor Mills, I think one or two of his matches over in France pop up straight away, especially that 25-minute banger with Tristian Archer. Please go and check that one out. It's so good. And from France, I want to take you to Wales and South Wales, and we got to talk about Brendan's promotion, New Wave, and you've had some great outings there. Harrison Bennett, of course, Danny Luna, this wild 7-person match that happens last month, I think. And of course, you got another huge match to come on the 14th of July. But tell us a bit about New Wave working in South Wales, because I think up until recently, I've not really known you to kind of work so much in South Wales as you have this year, and of course with Attack Pro Wrestling as well. But you seem to have a real connection with South Wales in 2023.
Yeah, so I think it kind of stems from my 2019 days in Attack. Like I always sort of had a good relationship with all of the Welsh guys,
Yeah,
and again that sort of bled over. And I became like really good friends with Brendan White as well, that staple there. So we've always had like a good relationship, like both professional and like personally. So like they've always been super inviting, and like they often tell me like that they hold me in quite high regard as a wrestler, which is really nice to hear. So when I do go over to the New Wave shows, a lot of the times like I'm wrestling like a couple of their guys, like Leon Cage, who I wrestled last month.
that was a banger.
It's
That was a crazy
yeah,
match. Love that one.
he's been he's been training for like a year or less. So it's nice for them to put me in a position where they trust me to be able to bring the best out of him and like like let him learn from me. So again, like stuff like that really builds my confidence when people put me in that regard. And then if I can in turn like give him like a really good match that he's proud of and like happy with, and that Brendan is like the promoter is like proud of and happy with, then like it's just a win-win situation for all of us. And again, it's just nothing but like a good team there. Like it's just a really good team and like, really good group of people. And like I'm very happy to be a part of it. And like, hope to be like part of that Welsh scene for a long time to come.
Absolutely. And I think they've got some, like I say, not only tremendous schools, New Wave Academy, of course, and some great promotions there. We mentioned New Wave, of course, Pro Wrestling Chaos, who is based out of Bristol, but sometimes works South Wales, and so many others. But some of the young talent that's coming through. We mentioned Kurt Atlas, Shane Hooker earlier, and of course, I'm going to bring up this picture again. Leon Cage. I think he's only 16 years old,
Yeah,
so obviously
crazy.
you're familiar with kind of what it's like coming into the business at that age. But I think he wrestles beyond his years. For example, he wrestles beyond his years. I think he's going to be a star of the future, along with Shane and one or two others.
Yeah, absolutely. Like seeing how good they are, like their ages now, just reminds me that I was nowhere near that good when I was their age. So it just shows that the sky's the limit for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And another question that came through before we went live. Now, this is from Darren Ewan, friend of the show. During your time with RevPro, who's been your toughest opponent you faced? And is there anyone you would like to face that maybe you haven't already? So I think he's focusing more on RevPro, but your toughest opponent, and is there anybody on your bucket list in RevPro that you'd love to get in there with?
Toughest opponents, probably Dan Moloney. He's
Yeah.
up there. Carl Fletcher, like Mark Davis, some of like the toughest people I've been in the ring with, like Will Ospreay as well. But in terms of people I want to, like, I would love to wrestle her. I haven't wrestled yet in RevPro specifically. You know, Zack Sabre Jr. is probably like right up there for me.
Yeah.
You know, I love a rematch with Dan Moloney as well. I feel like, again, like at the time I wrestled him, I wasn't the wrestler I am now, so I'd love to run that back. But yeah, like Zack Sabre Jr. is definitely around the top of that list.
Yeah, absolutely. And funnily enough, my next picture was yourself with Dan. How fortuitous is that? But the reason why I've got that picture there is because obviously he's been smashing it recently, not just around the UK, but over in Japan for New Japan, doing some tremendous things, really making a name for himself over there. When you see somebody like Dan that you know very well, that you've been in the ring with, do what he's doing over in Japan, and just the performer that he's become. He's an absolute beast, but really, really inspirational, kind of his journey, his story, and what he's been able to achieve. What does that mean to you, especially with your relationship and friendship with Dan? And is that inspiring towards you in getting better and wanting to be a better performer yourself?
Yeah, like without, you know, no doubt in my mind, like it's because it's someone so close to me as well, like someone like I really am like good friends with, and I have been like really good friends with for a long time. To see him like just go and now like live his dream and like achieve it and like grab it and see him in a New Japan ring and see his name mentioned among some of the best wrestlers just in history
Yeah.
and be in a tournament with some of the best wrestlers in history. It's just like really reaffirming that if you work as hard as he has, that it's possible, like no matter who you are, where you come from, like if you really put that work in like he has for like the last 12 years of his life, that you like you can do it. And like, yeah, super inspirational, and it's like it shows you that it's possible. I think that's like the biggest takeaway from it is like showing you that it's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And being as we've got a little bit of time before the end of this interview with Connor Mills, one more question from me, and we've spoken a bit about Progress, RevPro, Attack, New Wave, and various others. But one promotion that I wasn't too familiar with until I started doing research on you, and that's Purpose Wrestling. Now, you've had a good thing going with them, certainly this year or over the last 12 months or so. You've had an epic feud with Nino Bryant as well. But that's a promotion that's just come onto my radar for whatever reason. And like I say, you've had a good spell, a good experience, and a good journey with those over at Purpose, haven't you?
Yeah, most definitely. I feel like again, I was able to do some of my best work there last year as well because that venue and the crowd and like being in London, it's something like I hold quite dearly to me, and getting to wrestle there like monthly has been really good. And again, not just have cold random matches, but to get on the mic and do promos and like come up with storylines and you know deliver matches with like meaning behind them. You know, wrestling Nina a couple months ago and like our sort
Yeah.
of blow off match. I couldn't have been happy with it. Like it's so happy with it, and just everything felt right. Like the timing felt right, the crowd felt right, like everything felt good. So yeah,
Yeah.
like Purpose is like yeah one of my favorite places to wrestle for sure.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to check out more of their action. And yeah, it looks like a fantastic group from everything I've seen just doing my research on you. So now they're on my radar. I think they'll stay on my radar. I'm going to look into them a bit more. But before we ask you for your socials, just another reminder to my viewers at home about my guests for the rest of July. Obviously, this is my first interview for the month of July. This week, Sunday the 9th, I've got the Northwest Saviour, Sam Bailey, coming onto the Wrestling with John's podcast. The usual time, 8 p.m. So make sure you hit subscribe or hit reminder so that one comes up. You can watch that live. The following Tuesday the 11th, I've got Joel Redmond, the renowned pro wrestler, first ever NXT tag team champion, Dusty Rhodes, one of Dusty Rhodes' favorite wrestlers. He'll be coming back onto the show for the first time in a couple of years. We'll be talking all about All-Star Wrestling South and their first ever show, which is coming up at the end of the month. Then we've got Taj, the promoter of Tidal Championship Wrestling, and Taj will be coming on to talk all about her wrestling fandom and what it's like to be a promoter for Tidal Championship Wrestling. Taj will be coming on Tuesday the 18th. Then we've got Septic Sid Oakley, the current Southwest Wrestling Openweight champion. He'll be coming onto the show Thursday the 20th, 8 p.m. Not going to want to miss any of these. And then to round off the month, I've got a very young performer, the teenage sensation Nathan Angel, who's one of Joel Redman's trainees, been in the business about a year, doing some fantastic things, has a great look, and he'll be coming on the show Monday the 24th of July. Not forgetting, I've also got Lee Bamber, legendary World of Sports ring announcer, renowned referee, and radio host. Lee Bamber will be coming on the show for an episode of my Legends Masterclass, which will be going out over 2 episodes this month and in August. So you're not going to want to miss that one. Previous guests on the Legends Masterclass include Marty Jones, Tony St. Clair, Adrian Street, Johnny Kidd, and Lee Bamber will be joining us soon. But Connor, you've been an awesome guest on episode 307 of the Wrestling with Johners podcast, live across Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube, of course. But for any of my viewers, listeners that want to reach out, say hi, see some of your footage, maybe see some of your pictures, maybe buy some merch, where can they do so? And if it helps, I do have a little ticker running along the bottom of the screen. But Connor, the floor is yours, my friend. Where can we get in touch?
Just Instagram at @ConnorMills_98. You got the one there, so I'm on Instagram all the time. So yeah, you can find me there, find my clips there, and on YouTube some of my full matches as well. If you just type Connor Mills Wrestling.
Yeah, and I've got to say, Connor Mills's Instagram page is very, very good. It takes you all the way back to the beginning of his career. It's where I got a lot of these photos from, where I got a lot of my research from as well. But Connor, you've been an awesome guest. Any merch, by the way? Anything we can buy at the merch stands, or anything in the works, or anything we can get?
Some stuff in the works. Things going to come out this Sunday. So yeah, check my socials, and I'll be dropping that soon.
Awesome. But one thing I like to do to kind of close out Wrestling with Johners is I like to ask my guests if they've got one final message, any parting words for my followers, for my listeners, viewers, for your fans, followers, and friends at home. But any kind of final words from Connor Mills, what would they be?
Oh God, I wouldn't know where to start, but like keep supporting channels like this for sure. Like had a really good time, like being able to chat to you today and opening up a bit more and like showing a bit more of myself beyond just a wrestler and then what I minimally post online. So definitely, like anyone watching, like keep supporting this so you can obviously like create more and share more like wrestlers with the audience. Share like other side of them that they wouldn't normally see. So yeah, definitely just your support to me and support to yourself, like from those fans, really does help.
Yeah. But Connor Mills, you've been an awesome guest. Thank you so much. Can't wait to see you at the shows. But stay well, my friend. And thanks to everybody for watching and tuning in. But Connor, cheers. The following podcast is brought to you by the Johners Podcast.